Hello, Steve Hart89. Well, amidst all the Strange New Worlds Season 3 press interviews, which are all pretty basic, we had an interesting little interview with the last Star Trek director, the guy who was last hired to direct Star Trek 4, the guy who just did Fantastic Four, because he left the Star Trek, the last Star Trek project, to direct the Fantastic Four. He had worked on WandaVision, and he was coming over from WandaVision to Star Trek, and he went back to Marvel to do that film, and I'm looking for his name because I've forgotten what it was. Oh, Sheckman, Matt Sheckman. And he reveals just how close they got to production, that it really was cut. They had the stages booked, they had the crew hired, and they had some people come on. They just did like a week or so of work. There was one of the makeup artists who just had worked on the show for a week, just getting started, and then it was cancelled. It was very much like that. They were planning, it was the same thing with Noah Hawley. They were planning the show. Now, he went on to do Alien Earth, which is doing really well. So all these people who could have done a great Star Trek have now gone on to do other great things for other companies and other franchises. So Star Trek's lost. But same thing. They had they were apparently going to film in Australia, so they had the studios here booked. They had the cast booked. They're going to have Kate Blanchett was playing one of the roles. Rami Malek was playing one of the roles. No, they weren't playing original characters because the Noah Hawley was an original story in Star Trek, and they abandoned that. The idea was they're going to go back and finish off Star Trek 4 and end that trilogy. So instead of leaving it like some other franchises, like Warner Brothers are just abandoning, characters or actors like, Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot, and abandoning those trilogies and leaving the fans just wanting more and feeling cut off. They were going to give, to their credit, they were going to give the original JJ cast their farewell movie and end that and then move on, which is the right way to do it for fans and for everyone. So they went to do that instead, but then that fell apart, and I know someone new came in and pulled the plug on the original story from Noah. That was the one that was cancelled because the management changed. The new one, the new the sequel to Beyond the Star Trek 4, we don't know why that ended. They had it on the schedule and everything, and then they just dropped it. It was going to be done. It should have been done now, pretty much, because he moved on to Marvel. But I think the idea was to get a movie out for the 60th anniversary, which is next year. That's not happening. There was hope they were going to do that. That was the plan, get something out for the 60th, which would be basically 10 years on from Beyond, which was done for the 50th, which was part of the problem because they had this no conflict clause between the series and the movies, and they couldn't start the series until they finished the movies, and they just sort of the series and that side of Star Trek's production wasn't celebrating the film and linking that in with the 60th anniversary. They didn't come together for the 50th anniversary, and promote each other. They were doing their own thing and acting like they were separate entities again, which is what was happening. It was just a mess, and it didn't really help Beyond. Had they sort of really pushed the 50th anniversary element and had the shows promoted the movie and the movie sort of linked with the shows somehow, even in just promotion, it would have helped everything. But everything was just conflicting and competitive, and it was just a disaster. This time they could have, now that they don't have the separate houses anymore, everything's under the one house now. Still different production companies, Paramount's, Secret Hideout and all that. But they could have at least unified to do something. But between the merger and everything, with Skydance coming in, even though Skydance was associated with the last couple of productions and wanted to move forward with 4, which might have been, that's probably something to do with it, but then it still ended. It's a mess. No one really knows what's happening. But it was just interesting to hear how close they got to making those two films. They had stages booked, they had crews booked, they had cast picked, maybe not contracted, but at least they'd spoken to them. They sort of had plans, and both were cut off abruptly with people just finding out they were fired, basically. And one of the makeup artists said the same thing. He said it has a whole folio of false starts, because he'd seen the scripts before they were revised and all this, and it's just been really messy and sad because the 6th anniversary is going to pass with nothing to market. And they won't get another one of them for 10 years. So they've missed a huge opportunity to do. They really didn't promote the 50th anniversary, and now they're going to have nothing for the 60th. They had content for the 50th, but they weren't promoting it because they saw it as competition, and they were going into doing a Star Trek series the next year. They wanted to have a new Star Trek series up for the 50th anniversary, but they couldn't because the film, they had the no competition clause thing. So that there was resentment and delays, and it was just a huge mess. So looks like history's repeating itself 10 years later. Instead of too much in production conflicting and not working with each other, now we've got nothing in production. And looks like nothing's going to happen for the 60th anniversary. They'll probably do a documentary, a good special, trying to promote the direction they're going to go in, but we won't have any actual new content for Star Trek. There's no way they can do a movie, and they could probably do something through the TV wing, through one of the shows that does sort of like a flashback or relics kind of thing, but that's about the closest I think we'll get. We're pretty much getting nothing for the 60th. It was interesting to see how close we got to getting some new films though.